I would like to begin this episode by thanking some folks who have supported us. These are Aaron Spruill, Mike Whitmore, Jamie, Jimmy Wilkinson, and Sean Franson, aka Felix, on the Slack. All of these are people who have gone to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv and gave us some money and helped us out. You can be like them by going to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Thank you.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out Fireballs. Watch out for fireballs. The fireballs don't have to watch out.
Watch out, fireballs.
Dispatch. Hey, fireballs. Get on the trolley, dickheads. Why you always burning my shit? Welcome to the Dispatch. It's our monthly show that does Q&A, topics, reads your responses, and announces new games.
Yeah, I'm going to read your responses to, got a lot of them this time. It's Inscription, Ultimate NES Remix, King's Bounty, and Until Dawn.
Yeah, that was a stacked month we just went through.
It was. Sometimes we get those four boys, and sometimes we throw a two-parter on those under the four boy months. But this time, no, it was a real sampler platter.
I'm just a four boy. I got new parters in me. We have some biz. Let's talk biz.
We do.
Strategies. What do they work? The international marketing. What are the two things you need to know? So we, as people who are listening to this know, we've recently restructured our Patreon a little bit in terms of getting how to get your episodes and stuff. And we really appreciate people's patience with that as we worked out the kinks and stuff. We have one final kink that we're working out and kind of just a directional change we're going to make, but we're going to give you lots of notice and we're going to kind of explain our rationale now. So, you know, with plenty of advance notice.
Yeah. Ripping the Band-Aid off, beginning in May, the early release is going away.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't panic. Don't pull all your money from the banks. Do not. It's a Wonderful Life this under any circumstances.
Please don't.
The idea behind this is to make, so there's been some growing pains and adjustments and switching over to our new individual per show feed element. This will simplify that. Is a big thing.
Yeah.
On our end and your end. That's going to simplify our workflow a whole lot. And, immediately, like when we first thought of it, it felt a little sacrilegious, but it only affects anybody for a week.
Yeah.
Like you get in and then you're on the week early. And then from then on, you're just getting it every week.
Right.
And it's extra work for you and for us to do that. And we have no concrete idea that the early release is a huge draw for people. It comes bundled with other benefits right now. And there aren't tons of people who just subscribe at early release who don't subscribe for the extra, to get the bonus shows and stuff at the next tier up.
Yeah.
So we're trying to be very mindful about providing value at every tier. So we've got some changes we're going to talk about next to kind of reconfigure that. But just so you know, like a month or so from now, beginning of May, no more early release.
Yes.
They're just released.
There are people who really enjoy getting all of the public stuff in one feed. There are ways that we can replicate that without needing to upload everything twice and kind of split everything, announcements and even discussion by a week between the people who listen to early release and people who don't. So if that's something that you are especially attached to, that can still be arranged. And keep an eye on social media for something else, for an announcement about that later.
Yes. Yeah. Let's talk about how we're changing what we're adding to the reward tiers. This is stuff that just impacts the $3 and $5 tier. If you're above that, you are nothing's changing for you other than losing the early release, but nothing is getting added to it. But we did want to take care of people who were at the $3 and $5 level. Like one of our goals with the Patreon is try to be as generous as possible. We want everyone to feel like they're getting their money's worth.
Yeah.
If we can.
So at the $3, what we're going to do is we're going to make almost like a welcome pack, or a sampler pack of some of our premium content. So figure one episode of each of the premium shows, for each of the years that it's been out, put together just on a post where you can go make it available for you at that tier. So, right when you sign up, even at the lowest tier, you have, access to, some goodies, let's say.
Yes. And access to the Slack at that tier is not going away.
Right.
So for $3 a month, you get a bunch of extra stuff to listen to, and and instead of early release, and you get to join the Slack if you would like.
Yeah.
Which we recommend.
Yeah. For $5, we're going to be doing something else. So in the past, and it's apropos that we're talking about this on a Dispatch episode, we always say like, oh, we need to do like a catch up episode, clean up, wrap up, or whatever we ended up calling them. And then we never do them.
It's hard to schedule them because they feel low priority.
Yes.
To do them. They are just they're questions, that we get, and we want to answer all the questions. We want to, it's a Patreon perk to ask us these questions and do these discussion prompts, but we only do one of these a month, and it's hard to have enough time to cover everything.
Yeah.
In them. So we're going to regulate those. So instead of just kind of doing those when we get a chance to do them, which usually we do a couple of them a year, we're going to do them quarterly, and those are being added to the bonus shows you get at $5.
Yeah. So that's being added to Bonfireside Chat. That's being added to Unfilmable. That's being added to the extra episodes of Abject Suffering, the Exquisite Suffering episodes that you get.
Yeah. And those, if you haven't heard one of those before, that's basically this, but without listener responses and game announcements.
Yeah.
We just go through, sometimes we do multiple topics. Sometimes we just do several questions and stuff on top of that. But it's us clearing out our Q&A that we get from the Patreon.
Yes.
So that could also, once it's more regular, it's possible that will evolve as well. I could see that being a place where like a Tube Talking segment lives.
Yeah.
Like that could be, there could be other stuff that gets added there. It tends to be pretty loosey-goosey.
Yes.
When we do it. But we're going to make that come out more regularly and add that to $5.
Yeah.
So early release is going away. If you are bummed out by that, I apologize. We apologize for that. Our intention is not to bum anybody out, is just to make things simpler.
Yes.
But we are trying to add some value back as well.
Yeah. So, like we said, that'll be taking effect in May. We're going to keep the early release up through April, and then bye off into the sunset it goes.
Yes, it can go join Duckfeed Valhalla with watch out for fireball sketches.
Yeah.
It's an evolving concern. It'd be weird if we didn't change in 10 years.
Yeah. Or in the 8 years that the Patreon's been active. So
yeah. Yeah, and this isn't we know this isn't the first change. It just we are going with our gut with a lot of this stuff. So I think that if we had it all to do over, we might not have done early release in the first place. It's an amazing thing to run one of these, because there's not sources for how to do it. They're starting to be now, but at the time there definitely weren't. And what happens is, Cole and I, like, we will be like, how do we add value to this? Like, I feel less like this every day, but early on, explicitly, we were very like, I don't want to ask for money. That feels gross. We got to make sure that we're doing stuff. And our answer for a long time was make new shows. And eventually that became unsustainable because we do a lot of stuff. And then this was just in that brainstorming session. Yeah. Like, hey, get episodes early. That's kind of a nice perk. Yeah. But I think that you really unlocked it for me when you said that only matters for a week. Yeah. So we want to be able to simplify it and give something that has more staying value.
We appreciate your patience with this as we make these changes. It's all for the positive.
Yes.
I'm excited that like we don't have to like technically announce an episode twice every time it comes out. That like when that people who listen are not going to be listening on separate like schedules or whatever. Like if people want to comment on an episode, it's just there for them it's there for everybody. Yeah.
You could become those weirdos who did listening parties for the Adventure Zone.
Yeah.
Except it's about our bullshit. Just like you could throw a depressing party if you considered that. Yeah. So yeah, that's the big announcement that we have. We're going to move on to questions and stuff now.
We are.
Yeah. Eli gets a start here. Says, you guys sometimes disparage people who value immersion. I always find that interesting because what those people are complaining about, I tend to find pretty insubstantial. However, sometimes I hate having my own broken. So what does immersion mean to you? What enhances it? What breaks it? Is it really a factor for you in any way? Just quick clarification, not disparaging people who value it.
Yeah.
Just say evaluating the concept of it.
Yeah. I immediately,
as an import.
I immediately got defensive.
Yeah. It's an easy mistake to make, but no individual person is being called out by that. If we imagine somebody who, to contrast, like who values something that we're like, this isn't important to us, it can be useful to imagine somebody for whom it is important to contrast, to explain why it is not important.
Yeah. And if at any point we do a little character of somebody who is like way into immersion or whatever, just do your own impression of us. Oh, I really value mechanics over. Yeah, do that.
Yeah, that's not really a person. It's a fakie. Yeah. So generally, when I think about this, this made me think of two things. One, I see it complaining about things that I find really harmless. So glitches, like a lot of the time.
Yes.
For example, somebody, because we started Elden Ring, I had a couple of tweets blow up. Not a brag. It's actually a nightmare.
Yep.
And some people, somebody was like, oh, I was watching somebody stream this and they touched a teleporter and there's no cutscene or anything. They just got a loading screen and appeared somebody else and it totally fucked my immersion. That's garbage. And to me, that's video games.
Yeah.
You know, I never don't think I'm playing a video game when I'm playing a video game.
I'm pretty aware. It's hard to forget that I'm holding a controller.
And that's how I like to play video games as well. Like there are things to try to get around that, you know, like haptic feedback or the way that like VR works. You know, the idea is for the controller to disappear. It never disappears for me and I don't want it to really. Yeah. Usually. Like I like that I'm playing a video game. I like the artifice personally.
Yeah, I'm into the artifice, and yeah, I don't really understand that just because I don't know. It's one of those things that'd be unwieldy. It's, you know, a lot of the questions this month relate to Elden Ring or Souls in some way, just because that game came out and so many people came to the Patreon because of Elden Ring. But another example that I think we talked about a few times is like, there's probably somebody who prefers the Far Cry version of skinning an animal or picking up crafting loot from an enemy, which is, you know, your character pulls out their knife and then, you know, goes down and you see the splash of blood and you hear the, and then they clean off the blade and then there you go. Yeah, dear Mrs. T Squirrel. The T stands for the. There are people who prefer that, you know, and to me, like that's neat the first couple times, you know, but then it kind of becomes like, man, I really wish there was just a way to like skip the summon animations in Final Fantasy VII. Yes. You know, it's neat the first couple of times, and then it just becomes friction. Right. So things that are done for the sake of immersion that are just for immersion, you know, like the animations
they live and die based on how frequent they are.
Yes.
And they die from repetition.
Yeah. See also like towns in JRPGs. You know, this is something that was a real revelation when we played Brave Fencer Musashi, a game that is Gary's favorite game of all time and one that I hate with the passion of 1,000 suns. But one thing that I do like is that its town is a menu, because I stopped being impressed with like walking around a JRPG town, regardless of the fidelity, a long time ago. Like initially it was a bummer when Final Fantasy Tactics had, you know, towns and castles just be a menu, but now I really appreciate that you can get done what you need to get done, including getting rumors and stuff by clicking tavern.
Just by clicking.
Yeah, and getting the music and getting the little background screen with your dudes there, and then, you know, clicking on the option. Like that all is good, and I feel like, you know, if I am choosing between immersion and, you know, a streamline of play, I'm going to prize the streamline of play in all but the rarest of circumstances, let's say.
Yeah. The other thing that the emergent, yeah, 100% agreed. You're not really losing anything in those cases too, because 90% of that immersion was the music. You know, it's not like they do very much. Like you go into this person's house and it tells you something about them. Usually in that genre, sometimes it happens, but the spaces don't tend to be very important.
Yeah.
I think. The other thing is the immersion conversation comes up a lot in glitches.
Yeah.
And as somebody who, you know, like, again, it's good luck to see a T-pose. Like if that happens on the day you're wed, that means you'll have many beautiful children. Like it's awesome. I love things that prove that the thing I'm doing is artificial and that the people who made it are people who make mistakes.
Yes. As long as it doesn't.
And not design mistakes, not making poor design. I don't like that. But little glitches and stuff like that are great. It just it's a little patina on an antique.
Yeah. It is the imperfection in the blown glass. Lets you know it was made by hand, right?
Yes.
Usual caveat: as long as it doesn't take away progress, as long as they don't have to redo anything or redo a whole lot. You know, the glitch in Shattered Memories where I fell through the floor and had like a really creepy 4 minutes before I figured out what was going on.
Yeah. Blessings.
Yes. Andrew says, I've been playing Immortals Phoenix Rising, and I've been enjoying it quite a bit, but one of the criticisms I've seen online is that the game is, quote, too easy. It got me thinking, does a game need to be challenging for it to be a, quote, game? If there is minimal challenge, do you still consider it a game, or is it just something else altogether? Absolutely, it's a game.
Yeah, still definitely a game. Like that's a spectrum, and gatekeeping is shitty.
Yes.
There are things that are close. You know, we talked about the game to toy spectrum, before, and then the game to movie spectrum. Like most things exist somewhere along those axes.
Yeah.
In multiple ways. So yeah, an easy game can certainly just be a game. Like Pokemon Snap is undeniably a game, even though it's very easy.
Yeah, and an easy game can be worth your time. Yeah.
There are flavors of it. It's really an execution.
Yeah.
Like I love the later or the mid-period Kirby's, like the late Nintendo, early Super Nintendo Kirby games. Those are easier than anything.
Oh yeah.
Kirby's a really easy platformer, but it gets by. Whereas sometimes something can be very easy and it's just not asking enough and I'm bored.
Yoshi's Story. Yeah.
Yeah. There's just not enough to it. That can certainly happen, but there's no hard and fast rule, I think.
Yeah.
Cinnamon Toast Cunt says this username every single time I get thrown a little bit.
Yeah.
It makes me wish there was a Cinnamon Toast Crunch theme song because it'd be real fun to walk around my apartment singing this to it. What are some games, past or present, that you wouldn't mind buying expansion DLC for forever? The DLCs could not only add new maps or stages, but new mechanics as well. I kind of did that for Isaac.
Yeah.
For a decade. And they're still adding patches that are adding new bosses and shit to the most recent expansion.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty close to that with State of Decay 2 or anything like that, like like the way that they added new content to that just by making it whole new campaigns on different maps is really, really fascinating to me. So that's kind of a recent one. And then also there's kind of a version of that with Man of Medan or the Dark Pictures anthology, right? Like that is kind of similar to like what if a story expansion based on the same engine was put out once every year indefinitely, right?
Yeah, like an anthology horror.
Yeah.
Exactly like that, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of stuff that I would want to have this done, I would do a new like Darkest Dungeon original class, the original version, not the sequel, once every couple of months for the rest of my life, and be pretty happy about that.
New Frostpunk expansion. I know we're getting a sequel, but yeah. Let's see here. Doug writes, I had a surreal experience recently playing the new Horizon game. The early goings of the game are set in Zion National Park. I wandered off on a random side quest and was stunned to find a rock wall and a dilapidated fence. perfectly rendering a random spot where I took a photo with my mom and sister on a family road trip. This was not a big monument or a point of interest, just a rock face that conjured a treasured memory. I've gone to many familiar landmarks on games, but nothing this personal or out of the way. Just wondering if you've had a similar experience visiting a virtual version of a familiar place.
A lot of times the games that I like that take place in familiar places don't have that kind of fidelity.
Yeah.
The closest thing was recognizing what the ceilings looked like in the subways in Washington, D.C. in Fallout 3.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I've been there. That's exactly what those look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and most games that I play are not set anywhere that is like especially dear to me. So like, you know, I lived in New York for a summer, and so anytime I play a game that is set there, your Spider-Man or your Prototype or what
Giuliani
have you.
Man.
Yeah, your Giuliani Man. I'll go and see how like accurately they render certain places. You know, just like landmarks that I remember, like what did they put in place of that restaurant that I really liked, etc. But you know, that was only a summer. I will say that I spent an embarrassing amount of time eating an edible and then going into VR and going into like Google Earth or another map, I think it's called, or another mapping kind of thing called Wander, and going to familiar places and then just like clicking and seeing the entire history of stuff. Like I was nearly in tears watching a tree grow in front of the house where I lived for all of college. You know, it's like 2007, 2009, 2011. Now it's huge and they repainted the deck. What's happening? Oh no.
That's a really good time.
Yeah.
Going in there and checking out, like, I'm gonna look at every place I ever lived.
Yeah.
You know, I've had this experience outside of games more. So watched Jackass 1, a lot of which is shot in Portland. And I was like, oh, I've been to the hardware store where he takes a shit. And that was really surreal because the first time I saw the movie, it was just an anonymous hardware store. Then I went to the hardware store without thinking about it, then watched the movie. So I've had that experience a lot more often.
Nice.
Gabe asks, lately I've been having conversations with friends and people in my online communities about frame rate. My personal bias is a lot like Gary's in that I get annoyed and don't care about frame rates, refresh rates, resolutions, HDRs, teraflops, flurpaderps, etc. Yes, I have a high-end PC and monitor, but I don't put frame rate counters up and pretty much think if it plays the game, great. I think Bloodborne is one of the greatest games ever made and is a must for people to play in this genre. Despite this, I've heard from friends that they find the game literally unplayable and cite input lag due to the frame rate. I played the game 3 times and find it as responsive as any other Souls game. I'd argue that they're creating artificial hurdles in their head and are denying themselves one of the best gaming experiences. You guys say that fun is real, and that makes me think I might be wrong about this, and that hardware-related roadblocks are real too on an individual basis. What do you think? I know the N64 is a mess, but I still play it, but that might be permanent nostalgia goggles. I can see how GoldenEye would be unplayable to a more fresh gamer. I feel like people saying 30 FPS is unplayable is BS, and if it's true, would that not invalidate the last decade or two of console gaming? Where does that line get drawn? Also, I just want to massage your ego, Gary, when you brush off all the technical mumbo jumbo. I love that shit. Oh, thank you, Gabriel.
I wish people
lack of gearheads unite.
I wish people would really keep their powder dry on any of the unblinkables, except for Unfilmable. Everybody should fire off on Unfilmable because it's a good show and people should listen to it.
And even that show is about how that's a lie. Like the main concept of it was that Lovecraft was considered unfilmable stuff for a long time. We're like, well, let's look at the attempts that do it.
Yeah. You know? And the people have succeeded. But just as a disparaging comment, I don't know, maybe it's because we get like reviews that say this show is unlistenable because they acknowledge what each other said.
Yes.
That kind of stuff.
No.
It usually feels like a stand-in for a broader critique. or like a more let's say specific critique, the opposite of the thing I said. I just don't like it.
Sometimes a more general one as well. Sometimes it's just, I don't like this.
Yes.
And it's just a hyperbolic way of saying I don't like.
Yeah. So the 30 or 60 thing, just I don't know. I dismissed that out of hand. I think that it absolutely is a thing where somebody could say like, yeah, I can't go back to the N64 because that's a that's a mess. Like that all tracks to me. Ultimately, if somebody is saying I'm not going to play Bloodborne because of this, it's their loss. I think.
Yeah.
More than anything.
Yeah. They don't have to be disingenuous for it to be they're kind of fucking themselves over.
Yeah.
Like that. It's not dissimilar to like people and I have some tendencies around this with some mediums, like people who can't watch like black and white films.
Yes.
I can watch black and white films. I do find a lot of old movies pretty boring.
Mm-hmm.
That's more about the content of them though. It's not the delivery package. I think that the delivery package, I think it is a good thing as a consumer to accept a wide array of delivery packages for media. You run into this with like old PC games all the time. It's not frame rate. It's like UI stuff.
Yeah.
That's complicated. And it doesn't mean somebody's wrong when they're like, I can't get a handle on this.
Yeah.
Like that could be definitely true. But if they, I guess can't in this situation is really similar to won't. Like, and effectively the same. Like I'm unwilling to do the stretching.
Yeah.
Which is a valid, but it does mean that it's possible. And I do think they would be getting a good experience.
Yeah. But then it becomes like, how do you say what is worth? Like, okay, like if you got over this friction, you would get over it. And then how far does that go to be, how does that substantially differ from, oh, you have to put like 5 hours into this and then it gets good.
Yeah. Which can be a true thing. It's just my own subjective values don't make that value proposition worth it. The same way these Bloodborne people, like they could definitely acclimate to 30 frames per second. Like that was video games for a very long time.
Yeah.
They choose not to do that stretching to get there. And I think that they are missing out on a really good game.
Yes.
But I also think that they're, bug nut bonkers for not playing Fallout 2, and that's an even harder putt. Like it's just, people are not going to get to do all the good stuff. It's an unsatisfying answer because it settles into subjectivity stew, but it's kind of true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Lucky says, my first introduction to Bloodborne was seeing the trailer that opens with the camera lowering into an alley of Yharnam. And it was love at first sight. I literally gasped with wide eyes like a child in a candy store and whispered, Castlevania. Sadly, due to Konami effectively making the game and effectively leaving the game industry, Castlevania as a video game series is finished. If Konami were to sell the rights to Castlevania, who would you want to have it? Assume Koji Igarashi turned it down due to having his hands full with Bloodstained.
I think this really ties into something that was a topic in the last couple of dispatches about like let it die, like letting IPs die.
Yeah.
And this is a great point. Like if I want Castlevania, I can get it with Bloodstained.
Yes.
Now the name isn't what's important about Castlevania. So the actual answer, and again, this is not satisfying, but is I don't care.
Yeah.
I can get Castlevania-esque experiences from a lot of different developers, and they don't have to have the Castlevania name on them.
Yeah.
To be good. Like Castlevania doesn't mean that much. Like one of them's in the future in Japan. It doesn't like as a brand, it's pretty flexible.
Yeah. And that's just the nature of one of these things. Like, could I name a studio like, the Grime people? I think that they probably would do a neat take on a neat take on Castlevania.
They did.
Yeah,
it was Grime. Hollow Knight people did a great take on Castlevania.
They did, yeah. So it's just like saying, like, no, it needs to be this kind of game, but it needs to be gothic, maybe, kind of. It's just things. Once they get sufficiently big and sufficiently beloved, they don't necessarily die. They just get disseminated into the bloodstream. It's just it ends up flowing to other places. So. It's kind of like another Konami franchise. Like yeah, it's a bummer that Konami hasn't been making Silent Hill games consistently and at the quality that they had in like 2003 or so. But like, yeah, there's plenty of good horror stuff that take their cribs from that. So that's fine. You know?
Yeah. And the people who made them are around.
Yeah.
Like this example, like, Igarashi is also just making his own version of this.
Yeah.
You can follow the people if you don't want to follow the brand.
Yeah.
You either follow concept or the people pretty easily. So the lack of brand ends up not mattering too much to me personally.
Yeah. The guy who did Silent Hill 4 just is got to Tokyo Ghostwire, which looks interesting at the very least, I
got to start reading reviews of that because people are like, this is great. And tons of people are like, this is fucking trash.
Yep.
I take a lot of perverse pleasure.
Oh yeah.
In that kind of thing.
I'm curious about it. Not the least of which because the Silent Hill 4 guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is this me or you?
This will be you.
Maya asks, as one of the many individuals who uses Watch Out for Fireballs as a way to vicariously play games I have no time for, what is a game you wish you could get all the plot beats and experiences of playing without actually putting the time into playing it?
Final Fantasy 14.
Oh, that's a great answer. Yeah, I will probably never play that game because it takes forever to get good.
Yeah.
According to even people who love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love to see what's cool about it without needing to put in MMO amounts of time.
I've been getting this from a YouTube channel called You Can Beat Video Games.
Okay.
That does edited kind of let's play walkthroughs of games, and they're old Nintendo games that I never want to play from start to back, but I want to see the weird, interesting stuff. So it's like I want to watch this guy talk and explain what's happening in Fester's Quest.
Yeah.
Or Rygar or something. That's real fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I generally get this kind of thing from Let's Plays.
Yeah.
Personally. But a Let's Play of Final Fantasy 14 would be ridiculous.
It would. Yeah. And like
I'm forever.
I'm positive there are Final Fantasy 14 podcasts out there. I am not confident that, it's hard to find. A, my podcast dance card is full up. B, I imagine that like the more interesting in demand thing is like not so much culture stuff, but like talking about recent changes, like about the end game content that's added, etc. Like, and I may be showing my ignorance here, not like an area by area, like what's cool about the story of this particular place, how is this different as different classes or being associated with different factions, etc. and down the line. Something that is not made for people who play Final Fantasy 14 religiously and, wait for the next expansions with bated breath, but like is for somebody who doesn't play it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't imagine there's a lot of demand for that.
But I also don't want to be onboarded onto it because if the worst case scenario is it tempts me to play it and then I have to quit my job.
Yep.
Because that's too much time to spend on one game.
Uh-huh.
Even like Elden Ring, which like I put my long playthrough in and play my second playthrough, won't end up being a Final Fantasy 14 number of hours, into it. So,
yeah. Should we move on to a different category?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's mosey.
Let's see. Douglas writes, I'm sick of reading about the new normal, post-COVID, etc. But I thought it might be fun for you two to talk about any changes and new normals that you have noticed in yourselves. For instance, before the pandemic, I would have described myself as standoffish and deeply uncomfortable in any public setting, and relied on multiple coping mechanisms. Just last week, I've noticed I've basically become an annoyingly talkative doorman, what I would have considered a monster back in 2019, and objectively still do. Have you two noticed anything different in your day-to-day, work-related, personal life, etc., that has markedly changed in the past 2 years?
I was just imagining an Animorphs book with Douglas turning into a talkative doorman on the cover.
Oh, man.
How's it going, sir? Big grocery day?
Yeah. There's another question that is similar to this. So we'll if we get to it, we can just say, oh, we already answered something like that. We're super fortunate, or I'll speak for myself. I'm super fortunate because I live in a pretty sparsely populated area. The places where I go grocery shopping and stuff immediately offer curbside, and it's 100% more convenient and stuff. And I do not have to go into a place to work. So very little functionally changed for me when the pandemic set in. And even as, well, who knows, because there's another wave coming. Even as things have lightened up, it has not been, a whole lot reverting back to, the before times. I'm pretty fine not going to movies and not going to restaurants and stuff. It's okay. Those are not things that I miss dearly. The biggest change, and Gary, I'm sure you'll get to this if I don't, but is the lack of live shows and stuff.
Yeah. It's a lack of live shows for work, and then I'm slightly more loosey goosey with doing stuff. Like I will go walk around masked around a store from time to time, or I will go to a restaurant, especially if it's like you had to present vaccine evidence to get in there, which is fairly common.
Yeah.
Around here. But other than just the biggest change it's had, other like outside of work for me, is just being a bounding box on what I can do.
Yeah.
Like I will still go wander around a store, with a mask on, but I can't be like, let's go to an amusement park. Let's go to, like, I'm being really judicious with the movies. Like I'm going to movies where I can pick my seat and be far away from people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things like that. So it's impacted that stuff, but I'm not, everything is normal and fine now guy at all.
Yeah. I
do have a feeling of like, am I willing to give up, going to restaurants forever?
Yeah.
Probably not. I like that experience a lot. It's valuable to me. If everybody inside there is vaccinated, and I'm not sitting right next to strangers, I basically feel like okay with this. I no projecting that onto anyone else.
Right.
But the change has been just kind of in being more concerned about that kind of stuff, while also not cutting myself off from things whole hog at the moment.
It's funny because I said, oh yeah, I live in a more sparsely populated area. On the converse of that, like shit's wild here. People, it wasn't necessarily like completely anti-mask, but like in the handful of times that I've gone to a restaurant since the pandemic started, or since like vaccines became the case, like I've gone to like a restaurant with my parents like twice. Nobody checks for cards. Like there's no like restrictions out here in rural Ohio. Right. So like buffets they burned their sneeze guards. Like they've gone straight back to like pre-hand washing. They'll fucking crucify you if they catch you washing your hands. Like it's nuts here.
That's so silly. I went to a food cart and ended up like not going to it, but they had a sign that was like masks are not required at our food cart.
No. Oh boy.
And just like, once it's a philosophy, I'm like, like you could just not have a sign up and let people do what they want. You don't have to try to like, that shit's silly.
Yeah.
And buffets, man, I would still feel weird about a buffet.
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh my gosh. Let's see. Is this you? Yeah, this is you.
Yeah. Michael asks, and we'll make this one quick. If anybody gets a sinking feeling of dread as I read this question, I don't think we're going to camp on this for a long time. Living within America, how do you both feel about the general chaos and downfall of normalcy due to factors like the pandemic, civil unrest, and the downfall of the middle class? What do you both use to cope with the daily stress of being bombarded with negativity in our world? I got a good answer for this.
Okay.
Log off. I understand the impulse not to do it. I went on, my girlfriend had a birthday. We went to a cabin for a weekend, and I'm like, I'm not going to be terminally online during this. And I was also not terminally online to avoid Elden Ring spoilers.
Yeah.
And it fixed something in my brain to where now I very, very rarely read Twitter. I just say stuff on it sometimes.
Yeah.
And I've been really good at limiting my amount of time on it.
Yeah.
I've broken the compulsion of just checking it, and I don't doom scroll anymore. I just stopped looking. And that feels irresponsible. At the same time though, I'm limited in my power to do anything about this stuff.
Yeah.
So it also feels reasonable and self-care.
I've been rolling this around in my head, like at what point is like feeling bad about the, just, is denying myself the ability to log off, which I understand is a privilege, but like at what point is that just like a weird and self-destructive form of survivor's guilt,
Point one, like at 0.1, it's,
yeah.
I think that because I'm not calling you out because we both have succumbed to this. I think you called it like being the watcher on the wall at some point.
Yeah. You got to keep an eye on the fire so it doesn't spread.
You don't have to.
Nope.
You have no dominion over the fire. It's not your job to keep an eye on the fire.
It's all of our job, collectively distributed,
it's
which means you don't have to take it on yourself. What's that?
We can't, I don't think our brains are made for it.
No.
It's suicide. It is detrimental. It's self-harm.
Yeah.
And it's, I know it's easier said than done, and it doesn't mean like just be ignorant about world events, like do good when you can.
Yeah.
But do good. Don't just watch things be bad and feel bad about it. That doesn't accomplish anything.
Yeah.
Like what a good thing to do is to doom scroll Twitter, see that Texas is doing some kind of horrible human rights violation like they always do, and then donate money or time to a mutual aid organization that deals with that.
Yes.
A bad thing to do is just to spend an entire day reading about it and feeling bad about it. That doesn't do anyone any favors. It accomplishes literally no good in the world or within you.
And another thing that I found is like, as opposed to like, okay, if I do find myself overwhelmed with concern about something, or just things generally, it's maybe not the best thing to like, just kind of basically don't keep the buttons on the outside, right? I think that's a really important thing, which is like deciding what affects you, or like, the things that affect you can't be determined by what other people randomly decide to do. So as opposed to just saying like, I'm going to be upset by whatever crosses the transom, instead I can be more directed. So like, I still, pay more attention to current affairs than I probably ought to, but it's real focused on like the far right, like fever swamp conspiracy, Alex Jones stuff, because I find it fascinating. And it's really interesting to learn about like the lineage of ideas that pop up, so like that, like that's more directed. That's put to like a particular topic, as opposed to just kind of, like my old choir teacher used to say, blowing around like a fart in the wind. Right.
Yeah. Well, and you can determine when your interest stops and when the pain begins.
Yes.
Like if you're following something because it's interesting or fascinating, that's one thing. But at some point it's up to us as individuals. Like it's a thing that I used to always, it unlocked it for me, because I used to always rankle when people would blame platforms for stuff. And the platforms, obviously, like Twitter has tons of problems, like social media has tons of problems, but I ultimately do fall down on it. This individual aspect of it, they should have better curation, all that stuff. Don't, put words in my mouth. On this very specific case, I do think it falls on the user. It's not like, oh, Twitter is hell. It's, oh, you're letting yourself make Twitter hell. Like you get to decide when I'm no longer interested or doing anything useful. This is just making me feel bad. It's time for me to go read a chapter of a book. Yeah. So it's time for me to stop looking at screens.
And just decide, I can decide to be happy for a little bit by going and doing something around the house, or by working in the garage.
Not actively, slow motion stabbing yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
Even if you're not happy and you're still angry, because there are a lot of reasons legitimately to be angry. Like we should all be pissed.
Yeah.
I'm pissed, but at a certain point, just continuously rereading the reasons I should be pissed without doing anything is just like shockingly bad for my mental health. Like it's just so demoralizing and horrible. And I just decided to stop.
Yeah.
And it's not that easy, but I think that is really the only way out. Yeah. Because what would the other solution be? Like what else could it be? Of course it's stop doing that to yourself. You do what you can to make it better, but it's not just going to magically become better one day.
Yeah.
It's always going to be like this.
Yeah.
Always. Oh yeah.
No, things are going to get better.
Children, like we'll deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't have anything more to say about that. I'm ready to move on.
Yeah.
Michelle writes, I'm not one of those gamer Americans who goes around making the cake is a lie jokes in my day-to-day life, but last year we got a new safe at work, and I was the manager that day, so I got to set the combo. I got an incredible rush from sending a company-wide email saying that the new safe code is 0451. Besides... I think that was your duty. I would have been angry if you didn't. Besides being guys who talk about games for a living, what is the most gamer American thing you have done at work? You went to a work Halloween party as Wario one time, right?
We did do Mario as a theme.
Okay.
When I was in office, we did Halloween theme stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't like a subtle, thing like this. Like that's as close as I got, but that was like a sanctioned funtivity.
Yeah.
I don't have a good answer for games, but I did, when I worked at that job, I did set up an office, or in my office, I set up an upside down map like Magneto had in his office in the Grant Morrison run of X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
Just on there, like he was going to flip the world on its head. And I just did an upside down world map on the wall. That is, nobody really understood that.
Yeah. And that's explainable away too. Just like, I don't know, just makes you look at things differently. Like it's extremely important that something has a plausible explanation that is not like, hey, I just did this as a reference. Also not important at all, because own the things you like. But
yeah, who cares? Like I could have said it was X-Men. I eventually put a label on it, or wrote North is not up on it, which was my nod towards that. Like the thing I like about that image is that like it gives lie to a perceptional idea, like that.
Yeah.
So I like doing stuff like that, but that doesn't tend to be from games.
No. Just another map thing. I also like maps that are centered on the Pacific Ocean as opposed to the Atlantic, just because that flips around east and west in a cool way. When I used to be a creative, my title changed a million times at that job. When I worked at the animation studio, the digital video, as a fungineer, at the digital video marketing place, I would often try to put in sly, just allusions to video game stuff. Usually it got cut out because it wasn't just kind of like, hey, that's nerd shit, don't put it in here. It was just like, yeah, I don't understand what that is. And, it got taken away along with usually jokes, simple lines, anything that was kind of straightforward when the client got a hold of stuff. There was a video that didn't come out. Somebody went around and was asking like, hey, they're making a video for, it was a city video as like an explanation, like, hey, you should really only be flushing human waste and toilet paper down your toilets. And they had a little song, but there was like a scene of just like people flushing stuff that just like made them angry or made them frustrated. So it was like, what kind of stuff would somebody, just flush, just like as a funny, like, haha goof, to get rid of it, that we can show with like clogging up the sewer pipe. And I sent a picture of Dark Souls along with it, because like, oh, somebody got frustrated at this very difficult game and flushed the case down the toilet, right? Haha, LOL. And then that video never released. So,
it's typically you get in trouble for doing these things. Yeah.
Man.
Moving on to media questions.
Yeah.
Jacob asked, "Hey guys, just this weekend I went back to my childhood home and found a bunch of old tapes I had when I was a kid. It was a neat feeling to see some of the kids' media that made me the weirdo I am today, like Black Cauldron and the Disney Sleepy Hollow. What I was really hoping to find was a recorded 6-hour Three Stooges marathon tape that had all of the circa 1994 commercials still in it that I rewatched incessantly. Ripping that to digital would basically be a 6-hour easy dopamine source for me now. Sadly, I'm pretty sure that went to a landfill when my parents cleaned out their old, outdated entertainment center. So now I can just remember it wistfully as one big nostalgia source that I won't be able to go back to. Do either of you have similar pieces of media or experiences from your childhood that are lost to time, but you wish you could find it and recreate it again?
The extended play VHS tape, where I just over the course of several nights filled it with episodes of Syphil and Ollie, the MTV puppet show, and I can get all of those. Somebody just recently did like a high definition, or as high definition as you can, upload of them to YouTube, which that person is a hero. But I would want that back just because it would have the commercials and like the promos and like the last 5 minutes of Biorhythm or Iconoclasts.
Yeah.
Just anything that is in the 10 spot, from MTV in 1999 to 2000, let's say. Just because, I just watched an awful lot of late night MTV. And so, primarily for Syphil and Ollie, but like all of that is just really nostalgic for me. And that tape is probably gone, which is weird because I normally keep a hold of everything,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a specific object like that, but I do seek out this feeling. Like I will watch commercial compilations on YouTube sometimes. And I get this from magazine ads. There is a Magic card magazine I used to get called Inquest that I will buy any copy of I see in a thrift store that is hard to find now and expensive on eBay. A complete run of that from when I was collecting it would be just an absolutely mind-melting experience. And like looking through old issues of that or old issues of Nintendo Power or Dragon Magazine or whatever, and just seeing ads that I saw in things I read over and over and over.
Yeah.
Absolutely time travel me in a way that is really satisfying.
Yeah. I mean, that's
I seek that feeling.
Primarily the reason I keep my old video game magazines around, not so much for the content, which is, but for the ads. Oh boy, the ads.
Yeah. Yeah. That stuff is very good. I love it. A lot of that stuff's on archive.org.
Oh yeah.
Weirdly enough, there are a lot of old magazines and old magazine ads on there if you dig. And Jacob, if you're looking for those commercials, try like 1994, commercial compilation on YouTube, and you'll see at least some of them.
Yeah. Matt says, are either of you subscribed to any Patreons or Patreon alikes? If so, are there any that you would recommend? What makes you decide to subscribe to one? Do you tend to be reward focused, or are you more likely to subscribe to a creator out of a sense of, I just like that person?
I subscribe to a lot of Patreons.
Mm-hmm.
And it's entirely the latter. It's entirely, they're either friends. I think I'm on like the Monster of the Week Patreon because I love Jeremy, not because I like Supernatural.
Yeah.
Like I don't know Supernatural, but I like Jeremy. I want my friends to continue to make stuff. And then anybody who is in the pile of just people who I have, consumed tons of their stuff. Like I patronize, Retronauts and Noah Gervais and just people who, whose work I really love, but I never get the bonuses and benefits. I personally don't care. I just want to give them a tip for being awesome.
Yeah. Pretty much the same. The only like Patreon where I regularly consume the bonus stuff is QAnon Anonymous. That is a very good podcast. And I like their bonus episodes because they're basically just extra regular episodes of that show. So that's like one of them, but other stuff like I don't know. I'll watch the stuff that Illusory Wall puts up because I like Illusory Wall stuff, regardless of if it's on YouTube or on Patreon. I don't necessarily even really care. If it's on one or the other, I just want to see what they make because it's interesting and very well put together. You
don't want the spigot to turn off.
Yeah,
Illusory is a friend and friend of the show, and I want him to keep making stuff.
Yes.
And if I can help with that, I want to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So stuff like that. Like I'm looking at this. Like I support Grimrock because that's a way to support the Nightfall mod, right? Retronauts and just a bunch of stuff like that. So
Yeah. And then anybody who I personally know,
yeah,
I will generally support their Patreon, just because, like, I don't know, it seems nice.
Mm-hmm.
Roberto asks, can you remember a moment when the themes or content of a work of media challenged you intellectually, emotionally, or philosophically? Not in a puzzle box sense of something being difficult to parse, but in a way that makes you contend with something about yourself or the world in a way you wouldn't have done before, or simply had an impact on you that would daze you for a few hours of aftermath. Michael Haneke movies tend to do this a lot for me, but I couldn't say in what way I was a different person before watching Caché. That would be more of an impact thing.
Yeah.
All my answers are super normie. So that's why, like, I'm just going to sound like a normie when I say it. But like, there are things that, so the first time I saw Get Out, I didn't know anything going into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I adore that movie. And it made me, it was part like figuring it out, but it was also just like made me stop and consider like, oh, this is a really deep movie about how Black bodies are used and portrayed.
Yeah.
There's a lot to chew on here.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't about the puzzle box part of it. It was about like chewing on the theme.
Yeah. And in terms of like reevaluating stuff, there was probably a time when I would have said, oh, if I could vote for Obama a third time, I probably would.
Yeah. 100%. Like the idea of somebody, you could do a whole thing on Stephen Root's character in that movie.
Yeah.
Like, not a racist, like doesn't dislike Black people up until he's pushed and he's like, yeah, but I still get to just have your thing.
Yeah.
It sucks, doesn't it, man? As like one of you think he's going to be the good guy. And my moment of self-reflection in that movie was seeing it. And it's not something I'm proud of, but I was like, oh, like he might save him.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking of the optics of like what would happen if the white dude, saved the guy and Get Out, because I didn't know Get Out at the time. And I was, I'm not proud of it. I was just like, wasn't doing a good job of thinking.
Yeah.
And then that didn't happen. It's like, oh yeah, no, like you still benefit from this shit, even if you're not actively racist. Like, I think that movie is very elegant and good. And that's probably my best example of that, even though it's an incredibly popular movie, and the conclusions I was coming to while watching it were things that were text.
Yeah.
Like they weren't subtext. I was just, I still have tons to learn about race.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fucking idiot when it comes to that stuff. I'm trying, but I'm not smart at it.
It was a challenging work in the sense that it kind of forced me to grow and reflect and react to it.
Yeah. That's probably my best example.
Yeah. Mine is nowhere near as important as that. And also Gary, you are going to laugh at me, but remember I was in high school, and this is, like an early example of something that happened with this. Have you seen the movie Orange County?
I'm familiar with, but I've not seen Orange County.
Okay. Stars Colin Hanks as like a high school senior who really hates where he lives. He doesn't like he does not view his friends as being like especially, smart. He wants to go to Stanford and leave everybody behind, just because he thinks that there are great things waiting for him there. And the entire movie is about him like accepting that he's not going to get into Stanford like he wanted to, but also accepting that the people around him are actually really important to him, and he doesn't have to kind of go with plan A in order to be happy and be fulfilled and all that kind of stuff. It's a stoner comedy from 2002, but like when I was in high school at that point, it was like, I was a real piece of shit in terms of thinking like, I'm going to go to a big college and I'm going to be the smart guy and blah, 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 blah. And I watched that and I was like, the
geographical cure.
Yeah. Looking for the geographical cure and stuff. And like, I watched that and was like, maybe, it didn't sink in like immediately, but like I saw myself in that and immediately started, something started in there, kind of a, be appreciative because stuff that you may think is smaller than you is actually important to who you are, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You can find good messages in the dumbest of media.
Yeah.
No problem. Like things like that. And everybody's going to have a first time they're exposed to an idea. Like things only seem common sense before you learn them.
Mm-hmm.
No shaming people for when they land where they need to land.
Yeah.
It's just important that they landed.
Mm-hmm. And it hit me at the right time. It was like sophomore year in high school. And it was like, hey, maybe stop being a piece of shit just because you think you came from a small town,
Yeah. It's a good lesson.
Yeah.
It's a real good lesson.
Let's see. Greg's question was the one about, was the other one about pandemic stuff, but it was more about how has, sticking around the house and kind of being locked in more affected your podcast listening. Has it?
Yeah. I listen to fewer podcasts now than I once did because I don't have a commute. That had less to do with the pandemic and more to do with working from home.
Yeah.
So, I still get out every once in a while. I still do walks and stuff. I still do chores. I have reasons to listen to, but also between podcasting and YouTube, there's more stuff than I can actually get to.
Yeah.
And I also still enjoy music. So sometimes that wins.
Yeah.
So I'm way behind on all that stuff. And I've just decided not to worry about it. I've thrown it into I'm not going to be able to do everything whole. So chill out.
Yeah. Do you want to do the extended lightning round?
Let's lightning round it up.
Yeah.
And then we're do our topic and all that jazz. A lot of people ask short questions. So that's why it's an extended lightning round.
Yeah. Noel asks, what is the Dark Souls of comparing things to Dark Souls?
Comparing things to Dark Souls is the Dark Souls of comparing things to Dark Souls.
Comparing Demon Souls to Dark Souls
is the comparison of Dark Souls to Demon Souls. Chase says, quick questions. I wonder if you guys had ever played any Total War games. I have not.
I played Rome Total War back in the day and thought it was neat, but it was a little bit over my head. It'd be interesting to go back and check and see how that has gone, especially after having played Warhammer Dark Omen and feeling that kind of.
We need a WoF strategy break.
We do,
however.
Yeah, no, not for that.
I would be down to try an entry in that series at some point, but that's certainly a next year thing at the soonest because. Oh yeah. I love those games and I'm even a little burnt out.
Yeah. I was speaking personally for me. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I know. I guess I wasn't correcting you. I think in my head, I was like heading off. You should play Total War for the show, which wasn't part of the question. I was just snapping at shadows, I guess.
Yeah.
No.
Let's see. This is me. Okay. Fermented Sorcerer asked, what are y'all's favorite fake in-game advertisements, products, slogans, bumper stickers, and so on? Mine is a sticker that says Club Inflexible Person from Silent Hill 2 in that weird football room after meeting Billy. Another great example is Aquacure from the RE3 remake. Just for clarity, I think they're referring to Eddie instead of Billy, although both names work.
I would have said Aquacure and Saffron. RE3 deciding that Umbrella decides to make non-monster drugs was a real revelation in humor to me.
Yeah,
like these guys make bear, but also the T-virus. Like it's so weird.
Yep. Makes them more insidious too.
Yeah.
Penumbra Black Plague, I think is the one. There are soda machines that are called, like there's one like it's called Slow Brain or something like that. It's like Slow Brain or Chill Out. It's like they're advertising a like an anti-energy drink or something like that, which is very fun. And then from Silent Hill 3, I love the in the subway the advertisements for Minmo cat foods Minmo.
Oh sure.
That has Comic Sans text and what is very clearly like a cell phone picture of one of the devs' cats.
That stuff is real fun. I like the slogans for Duff beer as well. Like I get Duff Extra Dry stuck in my head, and Duff Cold.
Duff Cold is amazing.
Yeah, Duff Cold is very funny.
Oh my god.
Francis asks, skydive from 15,000 feet solo and you get to have dinner with your celebrity crush, or stand in a pit of spiders for 5 minutes and get to make out with your celebrity crush. To clarify, you live in both instances. Not sure how in the second. Maybe they're venomous cuddle spiders.
First one. I think making out with a celebrity crush should be weird. I would be self-conscious about that. And I don't know, 15,000 feet isn't that much higher than people normally skydive from. People do that all the time. It's something I'm scared of, but people say like, oh yeah, I skydove and it was good for me. So maybe it'd be good for me too. And
it definitely sounds more fun than the spider pit.
Yes.
When you'd be picking spiders out of your bits for like a long time.
Oh my God. They get everywhere. They go immediately for your holes.
Yeah, exactly. Like you'd have spider crack, and that would not be fun to me. Also, yeah, I would want to meet my celebrity crush before making out with them.
Yeah.
I also don't have like tons of celebrity crushes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Christian Shaw is going to be that impressed by either of these things. So, but probably the first one, just because then I get to skydive.
Yeah. That's the thing people pay money for. So,
yeah, I'm curious about it.
Kyle asks, if either Cole or Gary were to be away from the network for an extended period of time, which Soulsborne NPC would you summon to sub for them?
None of them seem like good podcasters to me.
Yeah.
But the answer is Bairn from Elden Ring.
Ooh.
That little bro. I don't know if you met Bairn yet.
I don't think I've met Bairn yet.
Bairn's real good.
Which one is he?
He's the little tiny jar in the Jar Village.
No, I've not found him.
Jarberg.
Oh,
I love Jarberg so much. Oh. It's the new definitive answer for like if you could live in any Soulsborne area. Like it's just there's tons of jars hanging out and dancing and stuff. It's so good. It's like a Spirited Away thing. Like I love Jarberg and I love Bairn. He calls you cuz.
I calls you cuz. I love that. I need to seek out Jarberg. So much stuff in that game that you just miss. Mine probably would be Laurentius of the Great Swamp, just because he seems like a solid bro. He
does seem solid.
Yeah, easygoing and curious about you and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think a sense of curiosity is important.
Yeah. Aaron asks, when will Cole and Will finally team up for a Taxi podcast? Give the 10 of us who also love Taxi what we want. I'll anxiously await the official announcement of the Latcast.
Latcast. I'd have to talk with Will about that. Will's pretty busy with work and stuff. I don't know. I don't know about when. I think that'd be fun. I need to get back on Guppy before that happens.
Yes. Yeah. That's something we do plan to do.
Yes.
So me and Will have a special project we want to do since we crossed the million download mark.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also want to have Cole back, and then we have another project.
Nice.
To do. We talked about, but we just have to find time for it.
Yeah. Let's see. Thomas, if you could eat one fictional food, what would it be?
Ooh. It's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would try a Pan-Galactic Gargle Blaster.
Oh, that would ruin you, Gary.
Yeah, I know. I don't drink, but I would try it though.
Okay.
Fucking wild.
Yeah. All right. No, God, I would just be so terrified of the hangover is the thing. Yeah.
I mean, I would be terrified of the hangover as well. I'm just curious about it. Because like the real answer is like, I'd eat a Morley apple. Like it's something really boring.
Yeah. I mean, this is just any fiction, and it's basically a meme, but I'm still curious about it. I want to know what the fuck a snozzberry tastes like.
Sure. Yeah. The trick to berries is they all taste the same, like under a certain
tart
degree. Like blueberries and raspberries taste different, and then there's the rest.
Yeah, but still, it dangles for me, just like I'd like to see the color from the color out of space. Yeah,
curious. Kay asks, if you had to direct a scene where you were introduced as a character in a film, what song or theme from a video game would you have play over the slow motion shot of you walking into the room? Personally, I'd go with the end of Small Sanctuary from Silent Hill 3.
I don't know. Just to do like a fun version of Bernard's theme from Maniac Mansion. I don't know.
I don't have a video game one for this. And I've always wanted, whenever I leave the room, for the opening credits of The Wire, or the end credits for The Wire, to start playing.
Ooh.
Because that would make anything I said seem like real Lance Reddick, you know?
Yeah. I've wanted for a while to rig up my speaker so anytime I, like, when I arrive back at my house, it plays Let's Hear It for the Boy.
Yeah, that'd be great. The consummate mood booster.
Yep. Christopher asks, you're being forced into a time machine by some mysterious kidnapping time guy, and you must choose a new time period, decide a decade or an era to live in. Which would you pick? It can't be now or any time period that you've been alive for.
I've said this before. I think it'd be really fun to come up when video game music was a thing starting, and try to make a career of that.
Yeah.
You know, so maybe like late 70s, which is just before I'm alive.
I was going to say the 70s too, you know? I would say 70s. I don't know that I can go to any place that is prior to air conditioning.
Yeah, that's a big point.
Yeah.
The band guys just sent me a flyer for REM's like Reckoning tour, where they're playing with Husker Du for $8.50.
Jesus Christ.
Somewhere, and I was like, man, I'd like to have been alive for that.
Yeah.
You know, and they're both like at the top of their fucking games. It's like right when Reckoning came out, and then Zen Arcade.
Wow.
And I was just like losing it.
Yeah.
Like
wild. Let's
absolutely
see.
Wild. This is me, Fenreliania, asks, of all the Poison Swamps and Soulsborne games, which do you find the most hospitable? What reward would convince you to spend a month living in said Poison Swamp, assuming food and water of survivable quality would be guaranteed?
The one that seems least gross. No, so this isn't a poison swamp. I was going to say Road of Sacrifices, but that's not a poisonous swamp.
Yeah, there's no swamp there at all.
Yeah, it's just wet.
I don't know. I want to have one with houses. You know, so like Blighttown or Valley of Defilement, but those aren't great to live in.
Blighttown has the mosquitoes.
Yeah. It'd be a real problem.
Yeah.
You know? And Valley of Defilement is more explicitly like feces during a lot of parts of it, which I would have a problem with.
Yeah.
Probably just like one of the mini swamps in Elden Ring. There's like a bunch of little people really talked about how many poison swamps there are in the game. And there are several of them, but there's only two big ones.
Right.
Like there's just tons of like little lake-sized ones.
Yeah, you know? the lake-sized ones, access to something else, I think, would be a pretty big deal. So that like makes Blighttown and Valley of Defilement kind of a rough go. If Forbidden Woods, like certain parts of that,
could be climbing out of the Valley of Defilement, like how your Blighttown, like even get rid of all the poison. I would just be so winded.
It's a lot
more
of ladders
stairs than I could do.
I cleaned up my gutters because that's the beginning of spring, and like getting up and down that ladder, like I'm not good on a ladder, Gary.
It's not nothing. Yeah. It's we're not meant to be on ladders.
No.
Like,
Yeah.
And then reward, you wouldn't need to reward me very much.
No.
I feel like I would do it. It would be podcast fodder. I'd talk about an abject suffering.
Yeah, that's the thing. Experience is content. So,
yeah.
Biff writes, Biff Tannen, thank you again for gracing us with your presence, Mr. President. What is your favorite Paul Verhoeven film? Also, if you could choose to either urinate out of your eyes or defecate out of your ears, which would you choose? Assume that whatever you choose, the other functions as normal.
That second part's really hard.
Urinate out of the eyes, just because cleaning feces out of the ears would be a real rough putt, I think.
Yeah. Would it sting? Would it be like having urine in your eyes?
You had a lot of urine in your eyes?
Yeah, like it would feel like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because if you shit out of your ears and it was just like normal shit, like you could choose when to do it. Like toilets would be different, but it feels like you could adapt.
Yeah. But I mean, I control when I piss, you know?
Yeah, but it's coming out of your eye.
I'm not
like,
a rat.
It's always going to hurt your eye, where my ears aren't as sensitive to stuff.
We have to assume that if your body does it, then it is acclimated to it, you know? So like,
yeah.
It just if somebody was just waving their wand and said, boom, this is the thing you have. No, first off, how dare you? Second off, I mean, yeah, that changes it. The shit out of the ears though. Like, I don't know. I have a history of pretty profound ear infections.
Okay.
Yeah. That
You don't
doesn't
want to
sound
top
good.
You
No,
don't want
I,
to become the king of ear infections?
no.
Yeah, I might choose the ear one, but I don't want either of them.
Yeah.
My favorite Paul Verhoeven film is Total Recall in a walk.
Yeah.
There's literally no competition for me.
Yeah. Absolutely. Total Recall. Like, maybe I could entertain a RoboCop or a Starship Trooper as a second place, but it's a pretty distant one.
Yeah. I love Total Recall. I think it's a great movie.
Yeah.
Aaron asked, in the past, you both referred to things that he would just write as Gary Nip and Cole Nip. I would just like to motion the court to hereby refer to those things as Gary Wana and Cole Kane. I was bored driving across several states listening to Waff and Bonfires I Chat when this hit me as a shower thought. Feel free to burn after reading. Thank you sincerely for what you do. I like Gary Wana and Cole Kane.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Motion accepted. There are a couple of these. There's at least one more of these motions to redefine terms. So
I appreciate everyone respecting Robert's rules of order for vocabulary.
Ralph asks, question for Gary. Have you ever played Shadowrun Crossfire, the Shadowrun deck building puzzle game? I think it might be one of my favorites.
I have. I like it a lot. We played it over at Levi's for game brunch for a little while. Ran through a campaign. I've been looking to get a set for myself just to play solo because I love deck builders. It's very good.
Nice.
Gabe asks, what are your thoughts on the Steam Deck? I believe one or both of you have a pre-order. When is your order availability window? I'm in Q2 and I am giddy like a pig in shit thinking about getting Elden Ring on the go. I love the concept and hope Valve has success with this. I've got one. I don't know where my pre-order is. I checked to make sure I had one, but I don't think I've got an update as to where I'm at. Mm-hmm. And if I have to log in for that or something, I haven't done it. I'm kind of just like, I'll get it when I get it. Mm-hmm. And it looks neat to me.
Yep.
I want to play Deus Ex in bed and stuff.
Yeah.
Looks cool.
It looks neat. It's tempting. I'm kind of regretting not ordering one, but I can approximate that with, remote play on my, my phone with the Backbone, kind of thing. And if they announce a revision, like a second version, then I will probably be a little bit more proactive about jumping on one.
Yeah. You can see how it goes. Yeah. I like new handheld consoles. Get that play date at some point. Mm-hmm. Things like that. It'll be fun.
Yeah. I'm excited about the play date.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even though I do think ergonomically, I wonder whether that's comfortable, like to do a fishing reel as your instead of buttons.
Yeah.
I'll be curious.
We'll see. Alex writes, everybody's got a few, so let's hear it. Tell us about your favorite robot masters you made up.
Robot masters are Mega Man enemies, for people who don't know. The one that I made up as a kid got made. I came up with Armor Man, and then they made Armor Man.
Yeah. So, I had a few that were that were like kind of made, so like, or were pretty much approximated. So like I had like Helicopter Man. It's just stuff like that. One that I just thought up that would be fun, Laundry Man.
Laundry Man's good.
Yeah. You could do like a Scorpion, like get over here thing with a clothesline and a clothespin. Just like he has different movesets depending on like which outfit he has on, stuff like that.
Yeah. You can fight him in a dryer. Mm-hmm. That spins.
Yeah.
Like as you fight. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this, I think this is me.
I think so as well.
Yeah. Jonathan writes, may I respectfully request that we move to change Fashion Souls to Elden Bling?
I like the wordplay, but I'm going to keep saying Fashion Souls.
Yeah, probably. That's a hard habit to break.
Yeah. I'm just now calling them Grace instead of Bonfires, and that'll regress soon.
Yes.
Andrew asked, what current TV show, movie, game, etc. do you just not get the hype for? For example, Ted Lasso is fine. It's okay. Why do people think it's the first TV show to have nice people and jokes? I feel this about everything I give into hype and watch. Because people say it about everything.
Yes.
And I have grown not to trust it. I understand that it's cynical and stuff, but during the first wave of like Netflix original series and such, I just had too many people be like, Stranger Things is life-changing.
No.
And then watch it and it's fine. It's a B.
Yeah.
It's fine. And I've just decided not to trust critical consensus on TV in a general sense. Like someday I'll watch Succession and I'm sure it's good, but I will just be very surprised if it's as good as it's made out to be, because nothing could be.
Yeah.
Hype's a disease.
And Succession was going to be kind of in there. I mean, pretty much just because like the premise doesn't seem especially like great, it does not have an obvious hook to draw me in. And I also don't want to invite people saying like, oh my God, please don't. You should know better than to do that by now.
Yeah. It doesn't, Ted Lasso is an example for me too. I'll never watch that because it was too pushed on me. I've got a contrarian streak that gets along really well with my I'm not going to be able to do everything streak.
Yes.
It's very easy for me to be like, I just have a tiny little inkling about this maybe not being good, or just a negative association that's just a ghost whispering that maybe it's not good, and that's all it takes, because I'll just do something else instead.
Yep.
There's no shortage of stuff.
Yeah, I can reroute around it.
Yep.
Wesley writes, what is your favorite Souls build archetype? Trying anything different in Elden Ring?
My favorite is gigantic weapon, no shield. I'm not doing that this run. Because I'm still getting used to it, and that works best when I kind of know bosses and the like. But that is my typical favorite thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, there's one that I always gravitate to. Everything just always reverts to some kind of spell sword kind of deal, because I like versatility.
And that works really well in Elden Ring.
Yeah.
As well. Mark says, would Twitter be better or worse if it only had a Souls-like messaging system? I think it would be way worse, because you wouldn't get information.
Yeah.
And earlier, Twitter has problems. I don't think Twitter is the problem with the sadness.
Yeah.
I think it is also on the user, personally.
Mark has another one here. Bonfireside chat will always be my first love, but I need more solid Elden Ring content to tide me over between episodes. Besides Vati, who is always great, do you have any new recommendations for Soulsborne content creators? Lore Hunter?
Yeah, Lore Hunter, friend of the show. As I think that I unsubbed because there was preview stuff.
Yes.
I didn't want to get spoiled, but I imagine Sean's still doing stuff, and I need to resub now that I'm past the spoiler wall.
Yeah.
It's not so much lore stuff, but I really like Iron Pineapple. Iron Pineapple has done a ongoing, like many part series that are like Souls likes you'd never heard of.
Yeah.
And those are great. Those have been indispensable in terms of just hearing about new games and then also finding stuff to do for the show that isn't Souls. But I need to dive back in. I had a lot of people who I followed, and I stopped following them when I was trying to avoid spoilers. So this is a question, maybe we'll do as a special episode for Elden Ring. We'll do another roundup at some point.
Yeah.
Like once, more people come out of the woodwork with it.
Yeah. And then Jonathan writes, have you guys seen the trailer for The Quarry? I saw it. I'm not even joking. Right before I listened to the Until Dawn WAF. I'm glad Supermassive is getting to make something a bit bigger and more like Until Dawn again. I have not seen the trailer. I just saw that they announced it, and I cursed to myself because they announced that literally on the day that the Until Dawn episode hit. And it was obviously after we recorded about it. So it seems like we ignored this big, huge, massive, relevant detail when we were talking about the generalities of the game. So fuck us, I guess.
Yeah. It's whom knows. I didn't watch the trailer because I tend not to watch trailers.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. I like the stuff that they've done.
Yeah.
That I've played. So I'm in favor of it.
Yep. I'm not against it. In fact, I'm for it.
Yeah. And then finally, Will asks, I'm not sure if you've covered this yet, but what are your favorite source books to read or just play, and why? The Tatters of the King, Call of Cthulhu, is a great source book. I also love reading the Ravenloft box set, like the original Ravenloft thing, and the Torment or Planescape box set.
Yeah,
are both really excellent source books to read.
I've talked about this before, but a good find that I had recently was a source book for Delta Green, called The Labyrinth, which is...
That's really good.
Yeah. which kind of takes, Delta Green, which is like a modern day, you're an operative working for almost like an X-Files SCP kind of deal, hunting down factions that are related to the Cthulhu mythology kind of deal. This adds new good and evil factions that are associated with different kind of stuff, but it was like updated. This was released in 2019, and the way that they handle the Yellow King, or the King in Yellow, Hastur stuff, is incredibly good. And the other stuff is neat. Well, like the fertility cult stuff is good. Yeah.
I gotta get a physical copy of that, because I could definitely reread that.
Yeah, it's real good. The Labyrinth, it's a Delta Green. Like, you can get a PDF of it for relatively reasonable price on DriveThruRPG, but a physical copy of it would be very nice.
Yeah, I also going to throw out any of the Shadowrun edition books called Threats. Are really good. They're just like, I love the way the Shadowrun formats its splat books. It's one of my favorite things with the message board content, and it's about threats like, hey, I heard a rumor about Chicago.
Yeah.
Like, that's where you get that kind of like creeping dread of people not really knowing what's going on during the Bug City shit.
Yeah.
So
you pointed me in
Bug City is also great.
You pointed me in the direction of those, and I've been very happy.
Yeah. Yep. So the source book's very good.
Source books, buy them, read them.
Finally, let's do our topic.
Let's do
for this one. We might be a little quicker because we spent a lot of time on Q&A in this one, and this is useful to get the definition out, but I don't know if it will support a very long discussion, which is fine.
Yeah.
But Andrew asks, I'd love to hear more about exploring the idea of permissive and prescriptive games, especially in light of some of the things you've been saying about Elden Ring.
Yeah.
So this was a claim we made. We're talking about Elden Ring, and it's probably good to elaborate on that axis that games can be on.
And we've kind of been nibbling around this for a long time, and I think that we just kind of settled on prescriptive versus permissive relatively recently. It feels like, even here on WAF. So I think it's important to like lay down what that is, because that feels like another one of those spectrums. Like earlier you talked about like the game to toy spectrum, the game to movie spectrum. This is like another fundamental way on which games can vary.
Yes. The thing that unlocked it for me was thinking about Elden Ring comparing to Sekiro. And the simple way is a game that is permissive for this definition. It can mean a couple of different things, I think, but what I'm thinking of is how many different ways it allows you to approach a problem.
Yeah.
And generally how often it says yes to the things you come up with to approach a problem.
Yeah, it's yes and, as opposed to no but, and then a swift crack on the wrist with a ruler.
Yeah, or just no.
Yeah.
Like, hey, and I'm not trying to beat up on Sekiro. It's just useful for an example, and it's what popped up when I did this. But like, I'm having a hard time with Sword Saination. What can I do? In Sekiro, you can kind of fuck around a little bit with different weapon art, prosthetic tools and stuff. Kinda. You have a very, very limited amount of avatar strength you can go and cultivate. In terms of
making sure you picked up the collectibles for weapon strength, and making sure you got all of the healing. Yeah.
And that's basically it.
Yeah.
There are in very, very minor ways, there are a couple of different ways to approach the fight, but really it's just about learning the combos and being able to consistently read the tells, consistently do the dodges and blocks and Makiri counters.
Yeah.
Where necessary. It feels like playing a really simple version of this, but like playing like Parappa the Rapper or something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a prescriptive game. There's a correct input at any given point, and that input is binary or close to binary. You either fail it or you succeed at it.
Yeah. Keeping it in the realm of Sekiro feels almost like we are equating that with the expectation of sustained perfection, or like just how much tolerance there is for mistakes, and I think that like the way to pull that back is to say that like Punch Out is a pretty prescriptive game, right? beyond a certain point, you can't really just, punch and, try and counter, because you're going to get smacked so much that, you're not going to necessarily get over it. You're going to be looking, like you need to be able to hit the one guy when he does the spin around the arena, because he'll wreck you if you let that happen, right?
It's different than how much grace you have for making mistakes, how demanding and prescriptive something is.
Yeah.
Like Punch-Out is a game with more grace for mistakes for most of it, but it's still kind of one way. A really great comparison would be something like compare Skate to Tony Hawk.
Yes.
Skate is about execute. They give you a trick to do in a general sense, and you have to execute it, and its execution is very difficult. And like it's giving you a mission and saying do a kickflip. So you do the things to do a kickflip. Tony Hawk says get a score.
Yeah.
It's up to you how to get that score. Or like Infinifactory.
Yeah.
Is pretty permissive. Like you are given a goal, but you have a lot of different ways to achieve it.
Yeah. There's like probably a handful of ways that will achieve the optimal way, like just to like maximize all of your scores, fill out your entire graph. But like, you can hack it. Like you can lean into patterns that you've used before, things like that. It is not requiring that you put things down like in a particular place.
Yeah. You don't include together something.
Yeah.
And it's related to a lot of other vocab stuff that we use. So that's what makes it tricky. Like you talked about not wanting to corner Sekiro in this, because that's also about sustained perfection and how much grace, for mistakes that you get. And it's really easy to kind of confuse and conflate those two things.
Yeah. I think one of the big, to give another example would be like Half-Life 1 is pretty prescriptive, Half-Life 2, by adding physics in, ends up being a little bit more permissive, right? Because you have,
but it's still a scale though, right?
Yes.
Like that is still a game that is linear and but I would agree.
Yeah. I would say, like it almost sounds like comparing any first person shooter to an immersive sim is a little bit unfair, because immersive sims are about those multiple ways. But like BioShock is less permissive than Deus Ex, which is, possibly like, I guess Deus Ex is a bad example because it's a little bit more on the free end of the way. But like, BioShock is less prescriptive or is less permissive than say Dishonored, which is less permissive than Deus Ex, right?
Yeah. And there's a close partner with this with expressiveness.
Yes.
Like the thing that I always talk about as a gamer American value I have, and the thing I love about immersive sims is that freedom of approach for a situation. Not only is that permissive, like, hey, would this work? Like, yeah. Like, yes, but also you get to do it your way as opposed to the bespoke developer's way.
Yeah.
I do think. And to head off pedants, like, it is technically true. Like, this is a spectrum, right?
Yes.
So like when we say this about the Sword St. Ishin fight, or to like move it out of that, if we talk about like Mario as being a fairly prescriptive game, like there are jumps in Mario 1 that you can only make running at top speed and jumping at the very edge.
Yes.
And someone can be like, oh, there are also lots of situations where I jump here and the next person jumps 2 inches over. That's different. But it's a spectrum.
Yeah.
So it's like, yes, you can argue exceptions to all of these things, but it's kind of where it trends. Mario, the Lost Levels is more prescriptive than Mario 1.
Yeah.
Like there are more things that require precise execution. There is one way to do it. And the game is figuring out what the dev wants you to do. It's not figuring out how do you want to approach a problem that the dev came up with.
Right.
It's like the answer between like, it's like an essay question versus a multiple choice question, or an essay question versus, just a regular question almost.
Yeah. Something else that like I associate with games that are that are permissive is breakability. which is a different thing. But I would say that like Morrowind feels a little bit permissive than Skyrim does.
Oh, and it because it's got those simi elements to it.
Yeah.
Again, another thing that ties into this conversation, where it's like spellcrafting system is a toy box.
Yeah.
And it is not afraid to let you make things that fuck you over or break the game.
Yeah.
And to me, going way back into the first question we answered for this is a way that immersion will affect me in a game. I prefer to have a system where all the rules work all the time and work the same way. And I'm free to abuse those rules rather than having a game developer take control away from me and make me do something a certain way.
Yeah.
In a general sense, tons of exceptions on both sides.
Yeah.
It's a useful term, and it also isn't because it ties into so many of these other things.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of fun to try it on as a lens.
Yeah.
To look at something.
It is useful, and I've found it pretty useful in evaluating things, just as another axis to apply to games. And it's been a while since we've stumbled upon one of those.
Yeah. And it's like putting it just so it doesn't seem like I'm just bad mouthing. Like, I think examples are a good way that this comes across.
Yes.
And so it doesn't just seem like I'm bad mouthing something I don't like. Like, to good mouth something that I typically don't like. I think that in a general sense, outside of the stealth systems, Metal Gear games are good at this. Like in Metal Gear 3 onwards, there's a lot of different ways to approach the bosses.
Yeah.
That encourage out of the box thinking and asking, hey, can I do that within these game systems? And the game saying, yes, you are permitted.
Yeah. Those,
as opposed to no, you are not.
Yeah. No, Metal Gear games are very good about saying yes to the dumbest questions.
Yes. Until you get to stealth, where the answer is no, go hide in a closet or reset.
Yeah.
Because they have the worst stealth of any of the big stealth franchises. But in terms of boss fights, they do a good job.
Agreed.
I think. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Like any other examples or thoughts or anything?
I was trying to think of ways to apply this to like adventure games, like trying to apply the spectrum to that. But I don't know. It's weird because that is almost entirely find the key for particular locks. And I couldn't come up with examples of like physics based puzzle game or adventure games that were not like actually just puzzle games in disguise, Yeah.
Yeah. It ends up running into taxonomy issues as well.
Yeah.
Adventure games as a genre tend to be pretty prescriptive on this axis.
Yeah.
Like you can do things in a different order. That's kind of the degree of freedom you have usually. There are text adventures that try to buck this.
Yes.
Like fancy text adventures that allow you to do a lot of out of the box thinking because text is cheap to make. So they can, your Emily Shorts or what have you can make games with tons of possibility space.
Yeah.
Within them.
Yeah. But that's the only that's the only thing that was kind of just bubbling up as we were talking.
Yeah. It doesn't necessarily mean good or bad.
Right.
As well. Some of my favorite games are pretty prescriptive. Like there is a correct way to play Rhythm Heaven, right?
Yes.
And then, like you mentioned, Punch Out. I love Punch Out. Love Punch Out. Yeah. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing.
Right.
But it's something that I really appreciate a game just being like, yeah, do the thing.
Yeah.
Break it, fuck with it, flip it.
I correlated with generosity, which
yes.
is usually we say usually we use that term in relation to an abundance of content, but I don't know, for some reason it's correlated in my mind.
Yeah. Well, all of this stuff is like the act of criticism. One of the things that's like interesting about it when talking about games is that there are all of these different spectrums. And it ends up being this like three-dimensional super clock that you would plot a game on all these different axes.
Yeah.
It's not a thing where a single exception makes a big difference. And it's not a thing where very, very few things are all the way on one end of a spectrum or the other.
Right.
But somewhere there's like a Myers-Briggs of games where you can look at them and place them on these spectrums and then put it in your dating profile and never date again. So,
yeah. So yeah, I think that's all that I have to say about that distinction. But I think it's, just in terms of wanting to define things, I think that was worth putting out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of, it's something we'll probably use in the future as well.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on now to reading your responses to March's games, which are Inscription, Ultimate NES Remix, King's Bounty, and Until Dawn. If you have anything to say about April's games, please go to Duckfeed.tv/contact by April 15th. Mm-hmm. Those games are The Shrouded Isle. If you have memories of Chuck E. Cheese or Showbiz Pizza, basically any Nightmare animatronic pizza arcade for kids, or Deathloop, hit us up at that email address.
Yes.
That website.
If you have thoughts about multiple games, then please separate them. And so for these responses, we are going to be putting Inscription at the end, possibly beyond the end matter of the episode, just because that's a hard game to talk about without spoiling it. It is really new, and we want people to play it. So
let's just announce May's game now.
Yes, let's do.
And then we can just do this section, and then Inscription will be at the end.
Yeah, there we are.
Naturally. And it will throw off people who zip to the end to post what we're doing next. Which I like, as a sicko, I like to fuck with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get fucked, problem children. I'm Clifford. I'm going to get you, Grodin.
So May's games. We're going to be starting out with one that I did not know about until the person asked for it, but this is a game called Fear and Hunger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks neat. And is well liked.
Yeah.
This is a kind of horror dungeon crawler RPG hybrid.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. It looks pretty badass.
Yeah, it's got kind of like a survival element to it. It's a PC game. It looks extremely like a PC game. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This was as a patron demand from Matt. So thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
After that's a Cole vanity pick.
This is a Cole vanity pick. People who watched Duck Stream in 2021 will recognize this. I'm gaga for this game. It's called Teardown. This is not Tear Away. This is not the weird little papercraft game from the Little Big Planet people. This is an indie puzzle game that is very permissive, where you are going and destroying things. Stealing things. I basically, when I try to describe it to people, it is first person Hitman for property crimes. I adore this game, and I'm looking for an excuse to go all the way through it. So
I like stealing stuff in games, and I like being places I'm not supposed to be in video games.
Yeah.
This looks really awesome. I'm really excited to play this. Also, very fun for me to have a three games I have not played in a month.
Yeah,
the first time that's happened in forever. Or since April.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I have played Chuck E. Cheese.
Yes,
and that's only 2 games.
Yeah. Then what's the premium episode we're doing?
Premium episode where we're closing out a series. I was like, oh, we can do that.
We're
doing
not
Max Payne. Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
We're doing Max Payne 3.
Yes.
Someday we could do Max Payne 2 because it is interesting.
Yeah.
But Max Payne 3. Neither of us have played it. It's apparently supposed to be pretty good, and you never hear anyone talk about it.
Yeah.
And I'm a fan of Max Payne 1 and 2, a fan of the characters, and I'm very curious as to what happens here.
Same.
I've heard it described as a video game version of a Michael Mann movie. And that's really appealing to me. Like a Man on Fire, the game.
Yeah, I'm into that.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. So Fear and Hunger, Teardown, and Max Payne 3.
Yeah. Keep an eye out for June and stuff. If you want to sponsor a game, there are slots. Head on over to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv and check it out.
Please do.
And that Max Payne 3 is going to be a premium episode. So that's going to be for $5 backers at the Patreon.
Yes, as will Deathloop.
As a reminder.
Yeah.
Yes, as will Deathloop. And that's just for the main episode. The generalities will be a preview for all.
Yeah. Let's do responses.
Indeed. I'll get us started here with Ultimate NES Remix, which Sam says via contact. I don't have anything specific to say about NES Remix other than that it's awesome. However, since the topic of the 3DS store's closure came up on the episode, I want everyone to know that if you have a 3DS, a micro SD card, and a way to connect that SD card to a PC, that it's all going to be okay. Just go to the 3DS hacks board on Reddit, and the fact there will get you started. There's literally an interactive guide that takes you step by step in installing custom firmware on your 3DS. You're still on your own for finding ROMs. Wink, have fun. Sorry, minor correction. The 3DS uses regular SD cards, not micro SD. I accept all punishments for this error.
The new 3DS uses micro SD cards.
There we go.
Yeah.
Before somebody tisks us for encouraging piracy, they're going to make it so you can't buy the stuff.
Yeah.
Who gives a rip? Like, like if you don't give me a way to legally buy something, I have exactly zero guilt.
Yes.
About stealing it.
Yeah. And it's there, and you can put your Linux distros on it or whatever. Plausible deniability.
And then also we talked about, emulation is obviously good. That's been in the discourse for a while that, emulation's great, but like there are things like Retro Game Challenge 2, which I needed to use a flash card to play because it's never came to the States. Things like that. Like I way into this.
Yeah.
So I will be doing this at some point before the 3DS store closes. Probably not just stealing every 3DS game because I don't care to do that, but getting a bunch of 3DSware stuff that looks interesting.
Yes.
Before it goes away.
Agreed. There's a gray zone here. And thanks for the PSA, Sam. Darth Ender X says via contact. So when I was listening to you talk about how it would be cool to play all of Super Mario Brothers 1 as Kirby, I was reminded of a browser game I used to play called Super Mario Brothers Crossover. It was a game. Real
quick. So I was trying to remember the name of that.
Okay.
During the episode, I brought this up and I was like, I can't remember the name of it. Thank you, Darth Ender, because I was really struggling.
Yeah. Well, it's good that it made it into an episode. It was a game that let you play through Super Mario Brothers 1 and Lost Levels as other NES platformer characters, such as Mega Man, Simon Belmont, Samus, etc. It was tons of fun, totally breaking the game with things like Contra characters with their spread shot. Sadly, I believe the browser version of the game stopped working when Flash stopped being supported, but it was fun while it lasted. There's that open source project to download, like it's basically like a storefront for Flash games. That has a huge library that you can look up. Just do a search for that. I can't remember the name, but it absolutely exists, and we have done like Abject Suffering stuff with it.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, like
that game is super cool, and I'm sure I hope somebody has archived it, so I can just download a version that I can just play.
Yeah, and that sounds amazing. And also like saying Mega Man and Simon Belmont, like. One of the shames is that so much of the stuff on the NES that was really good wasn't just made by Nintendo. So it's a bit of a shame that like Mega Man or old Castlevania games never got the NES remix experience. Although some of I know the Mega Man collection had like some directed challenge mods. It wasn't specifically this kind of thing. So
yeah. I want all that stuff on Switch Online as well.
Same.
I had a real hankering for Contra and didn't want to buy the whole collection because I just wanted to play Contra 1.
Yeah.
And that belongs to the NES.
It does.
In my opinion.
Agreed.
Arvid continues with King's Bounty responses via contact. So I played King's Bounty on the Mac, a port you neglected to mention. I played it a lot since a Mac gamer and a teen, I didn't have a lot of options. Or as a Mac gamer and a teen. I eventually got really good and won with the sorceress abusing time stop and control, and of course save scumming. I want to mention one event that was funny. I learned that using ghosts were great since it increased the numbers from their killed foes. However, this backfired once when I was sieging a castle with a villain and my ghost attacked his horde of peasants. At that time I had maybe 150 ghosts and the peasants were in the several thousands. My ghost won the first round and increased in numbers by several thousands, way beyond my ability to control them, and they joined the villain. I just gave him a huge army of several thousand ghosts. I never did manage to win and defeat that villain, despite coming back with a lot stronger army. After your episode, I got nostalgic. I managed to get working on a Mac emulator. It was a disappointing experience. Good on you to play it to the end.
That is really funny.
That's great.
I mean, it also kind of like it's pretty funny. Because they're working for those peasants were working for a general, and yes, they sent them to their deaths. But it's a little bit presumptuous to expect that they would immediately side with you after you killed them.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it's like, yes, ghosts, join my army. Like, no, we're going to be ghosts and take you over. We're going to stage a coup.
Damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Yeah. That's funny. Randy says via contact, King's Bounty is such a weird artifact of a game, an uneven, rough-hewn revelation to my 8-year-old self, who did indeed play the game, sat cross-legged on the floor with the Genesis placed before him. This is not to say that I understood the game or its systems very well, far from it in fact, but it was certainly the first mixed-scale strategy game that I had been exposed to, and was certainly the first time I had ever come across the word paladin. My lack of worldly context led me to believe that a paladin was something like a spell sword until I got into D&D proper and learned the horrible truth. The game was a hand-me-down from an older sister's boyfriend, bequeathed to me in a shoebox with some other carts: Dragon Warrior, Shadowgate, Ultima 3, Exodus, etc. This guy also happened to be the one who got me into Spellfire, TSR's D&D themed trading card game, and by extension D&D itself later on. He was big into metal, went by the Grey Mouser in the dark forest of the early 90s internet, and was just kind of a rad dude. This game reminds me of this guy, and hearing that music for the first time in decades was the perpetually swinging trebuchet that launched me into a very specific span of my childhood. Narrow in retrospect, eternal in the moment.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah. Sounds like you owe this guy a lot, the Grey Mouser.
We all owe the Grey Mouser. Cracked by the Grey Mouser. Man, Spellfire. If I recall, Spellfire was basically like war. Like they made a tabletop game and kind of neglected to give it mechanics.
Oh shit!
Like a card game.
Yeah.
Me and my friends were real into that because we love D&D, and like I remember it being really shitty.
That's disappointing.
Same thing with Dragon Dice, which was their collectible dice game they made, which was better, but also a big problem.
Yeah, that sounds like it's made up. I think you're. Yeah,
it totally sounds like it's made up. Yeah, Spellfire's back. Remaster the magic.
Ugh.
Huh.
Don't care for that.
Surprising. Eric, who sponsored the episode, says via contact, there's a pretty big age difference between me and my older brothers, for whom King's Bounty was a rental classic. It's hard for me to think about the game without also thinking about where it was roughly in Power Play Video, our town's video game rental place, where the only movie available was The Wizard and the only snacks was Lemonheads. Every time they'd rent it, I would watch fascinated but baffled by this game that seemed so cool and expansive at the time, while also sending out huge vibes that 5-year-old me should not even attempt to play it. This is for adults, or at least pimply-faced teens. Along with Shining Force and the Buck Rogers game, the Genesis was a weirdly rich platform for early SRPGs and adjacent titles. Now, 3 decades later, games that seemed incredibly complex to my young mind now serve as sick day games, when I need something to occupy my time, but can't handle anything more complicated than taking a quick run through King's Bounty. Dang old dust in the wind, man. Something that didn't hit me until this most recent playthrough. It is extremely funny that you, without exceptions, have to pay your units. Just imagining a pikeman and a Dracula standing in line at Continentia's payroll department waiting for their check. Pikeman's making small talk about how he's not sure what he'll do with this week's pay, but he's thinking about maybe getting a new pike. Dracula's rolling his eyes. He's going to be stuck in this conversation for a while, seeing how there are 200 ghosts ahead of him.
You have sketched out a very fun scene.
Yeah, that's great.
Maybe getting a new pike. I would hope that the army would provide that for him.
The army doesn't provide shit, man.
I suppose.
In this version. Yeah.
Huh. Moving on to Until Dawn responses, Brooks writes in via contact saying, Until Dawn was a game that shocked me. I'm not a slasher fan and was not into choose your own adventure style games. Until Dawn proved me wrong. Excellent branching story and great replayability. My favorite memory from this game was how it brought my non-gamer aunt into the fold with me. She was the type that had Tetris for the Game Boy on her coffee table for about 20 years. I started playing with her watching, and it turned into us both discussing choices and being scared for these awful teens together. Even to the point where if she left the house, she would stare me down and say, "You better not play without me." We collected all the endings and still talk about it now.
That's very sweet.
Yeah. I love anytime games are part of family bonding.
Yeah, good job. Sam says via contact. Not only have I seen Hamburger the motion picture, thank you, Sam. I spent actual time finding a good DVD rip of it because the bootleg copy on YouTube is too low res for my taste. Also, there's a connection between Hamburger the motion picture and Hot Dog the movie. Mike Marvin, who wrote Hot Dog the movie, also directed Hamburger the motion picture a couple of years later. While we're on the topic of terrible 80s teen tit freak comedies, I'd like to recommend Joysticks, which is one of those movies, but in an 80s arcade, it would be perfect for adaptation decay. Definitely at least look up the opening theme song. I've only played through Until Dawn once, but had a good time.
Thanks, Sam.
Let's do Joysticks.
Yeah, let's do that.
That sounds awesome.
I had no
I
idea
want to watch an 80s teenage tit freak comedy about an arcade.
Yeah. I bet you something ghastly happens in it.
Yeah. Do you think the sexual politics of Joysticks is good?
No.
My guess is no.
Sam, you have piqued my interest about Joysticks.
and I learned something about Hamburger the motion picture.
Yeah. And thank you for thank you for confirming our knowledge that you are exactly the right person to go to for this information.
My Sam challenge for next episode is the zombie gourmet chef from hell. If you've seen the gourmet gore GORE-may zombie chef from hell, you let me know.
I like this game.
Yeah, stump the Sam, stump the buff for $1,000. $1,000 and you can take it. Where does Star Trek 2 take place?
The best running joke in history.
Incredible stuff.
Oh man. Doug says via contact, I have fond memories of Until Dawn, but I wanted to highlight the online multiplayer built into the follow-up Dark Pictures anthology, and apparently it is to be retrofit into the Until Dawn remaster. A very good friend of mine unfortunately had some frustrating medical issues in 2021, which on top of the pandemic drastically reduced the amount of time we could spend together and how it was spent. We decided, however, to fight against that by scheduling regular co-op game nights. Over the end of 2021 and into 2022, we played the entire anthology that way. The game allowed us to make choices together, but then occasionally split up and have different experiences in classic horror movie style. I certainly can't credit his recovery to Supermassive, but I know working through these stories and having a weekly creep fest to look forward to had a palpable effect on improving his mood and turning things around. Personal experience aside, I highly recommend experiencing these games co-op if you can. It really adds a great deal to the slasher film immersion.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, it's cool that exists. I've been curious about it, but not fucked around.
Yeah. Once I had it explained to me, I was like, yeah, that's rad. That's actually a really good way to do that. And I'm curious about how it will affect Until Dawn.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm happy your friend recovered.
It's one of those things where, yeah. There's genres I think would work really well for co-op that don't, or it just hasn't been done yet. Like slashers are one of them. Man, I wish that the Resident Evil co-op games were good. Like not 5, but the PS2 era ones. You know what I mean?
Right.
What is the suffix for those? Outbreak, yeah. I wish the Outbreak games were good.
Yeah.
Because they're very interesting. And the idea of just going off and doing doing the RE2 remake with 2 people in the police station would be really fun.
Agreed.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about Inscription next, but we're going to do our outro now because if you haven't played Inscription, this is going to be highly spoiler based.
Yes.
That is a game about secrets and the like. So keep listening if you don't care. If you do care, now is a good time to shut off the episode. We've already talked about the Patreon. You can leave us ratings, reviews, tell your friends. We appreciate all that stuff. And we'll be back next week with the Shrouded Isle. Anything else before we just get into it?
No, just appreciate everybody listening.
Really do appreciate you.
Yeah.
Moving on to last chance offboard. Moving on to Inscription responses. Gordon says via contact. A lot of games take several hours to get good, leaving you frustrated while you slog through the boring chaff to get to to the good bit. This always struck me as backwards since you risk alienating reviewers and new players. What if instead of everything good in a game was entirely front-loaded? Somewhere a monkey's paw curled and Inscription was born. And honestly, it's not actually that bad of a thing. Yes, it runs out of steam as it goes on, but those first few chapters in Leshy's cabin were astounding, and I think that's what most people will take away with them when they look back on the game.
That's been the case for me.
Yeah. It's definitely the most memorable part. And since we recorded that episode, Casey's mod has a full release now.
Yes.
Is done getting updates. So if you are interested in just more Leshy's cabin for a gameplay perspective and also kind of a secret hunting perspective, that is available to you.
Yeah. I'm curious.
Yeah. It's cool.
Nice. Ryan says via contact, Inscription was my favorite game last year. It may have something to do with it being my first Daniel Mullins game. I was completely won over when I was given the pliers item in the first section. I mistakenly assumed I just placed the tool on the scale to tip it in my favor, and to my delight, I learned my idiot captive character's first instinct was to rip out their own tooth. While I like the presentation and theming of each individual act, I found the second to be more frustrating and imbalanced than I would like. That being said, everything else outweighed that issue for me. I only wish we got a section with the undead theming at the very end, as the game was deleting itself. Yeah, I want more stuff in the undead area.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. Even though I do love them setting up the boss fight and then it falling apart. And that's a great little clever moment, for sure.
It's very good.
Zane says via contact. I can't read the name Zane without thinking about Hypnospace.
Same. Yeah.
Zane. Just like, oh shit, cool. This guy's rad. Zane rocks. Inscription was a great game to play through unspoiled, but it's even better to watch somebody else play through it, getting to see the incredulity that you yourself felt. I loved watching my brother get hit with surprise after surprise. He would say, "No, there's no way. This is insane. This is an insane thing that they have done here." My favorite moment was during the fight with the archivist. When the boss showed him the contents of his disk drive, he didn't realize that it was his own computer. For minutes, he opened files that he thought belonged to Luke Carter, amazed that the devs would think through what files and programs this fictitious person would have. No way, they gave him a battle.net account? When he finally opened the users folder and realized that it was a totally different mind screw than what he originally thought. Were there any surprises that you misunderstood or got hit by in a way like that in any other game?
In a way other than the game intended, I guess.
Oh, other than the game intended, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hard to think of one on the spot.
Yeah.
There that isn't just either this or things similar to it, like, hey, I'm scared, mess with the I.
Yeah. I don't want to spoil anything that happens in Pony Island. And I know that Pony Island isn't this game, but same developer. And it was my first exposure to something like this. But there's a moment in Pony Island where there's an interface trick that plays around with the way that you're playing it. It alarmed me, let's say. Yeah.
That stuff is, and then like this is an OG, like classic one, but thinking about Sanity's Requiem.
Oh yeah,
Eternal Darkness does that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah,
freaks you
out. Moving on, Jerry Khan or Gary Khan, I can never know how to pronounce that. Says via contact. The thing with the type of interactive meta-narrative game that Daniel Mullins liked to make is, so far, the gameplay has not been the point. His previous titles have had unremarkable base mechanics, and the fun of those games comes from how well he mutates, plays with, and disposes of these mechanics and other elements in funny and surprising ways. But I don't think he makes games that would be all that fun to play without the twists and silly narrative. Until Inscription. Act 1 of Inscription is too good to dispose of, a game that is genuinely good in its own right, and it turned his usually additive trick into one that was massively subtractive for me. I really enjoyed Act 1. The mechanics, atmosphere, writing, and graphics were all totally on point for me. And in every other act, the game got further away from what I was enjoying. Instead of his trick breeding surprise and delight, it only made me resentful, and the story was in service to absolutely could not compensate for this. I finished the game hating that so much had been squandered for this mediocre narrative. Eventually, I got the game I wanted in the form of Casey's mod, and I'm grateful for it. But I can't help but think about how good Casey's mod could have been if the developers had poured all of their resources into just making that game from the start. Daniel Mullins has proved to me that he can make a legitimately great game here. I hope next time he'll take a break from the meta and just do that. I would love to see it.
Yeah, I think I largely agree. I think I talked with Jerry Kahn in the Slack about Inscription. I think I'm a little bit more positive on it. But I also, it'll be weird if the next Daniel Mullins game comes out and it's just tricksy again the same way.
Yeah.
Novelty is only novelty as long as it's new. Right. And eventually it becomes really rote.
Yeah.
So I think that it's the same way that it's a challenge to write a good pop song, Right. Like Daniel Mullins, like you write a good pop song. Nothing wrong with that.
He's in a really weird position because as far as I can tell, Inscription is his most popular game. I mean, it got way more heat on it than either Pony Island or The Hex, right? Like it made Game of the Year lists. So many people have been exposed to it and they're going to have developed the antibodies for his trick when he comes on next. So like it's weird because he's been making games for a long time, but this will be like a late. He's going to have to try to avoid like a late career sophomore slump, which is weird. Yeah.
And the positive way to think about this is that Inscription showed that he's capable.
Yes.
Of just doing a workman-like, this is just a good game.
Yeah.
We're going to chill out on all this stuff. I just don't know if that's where his passion lies.
Yes.
Like some people just have an unlimited appetite for the meta twisty stuff. And it's fine if that audience is just being served, to me.
I've got there's something.
I don't know which way I'll go, but for me, this was the first game where I was like, man, I did end up liking Casey's mod more than Inscription basically.
Yeah. Which is a weird thing to say because Casey's mod is still kind of Inscription.
It's contained, like Inscription contains Casey's mod. Yeah. Like the stuff that is added was subtractive to me a portion of the time in Inscription.
Yeah. Like it was neat when I saw the new stuff, but then when I realized what I would have to go through, it lost a little bit of the shine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still a good game, but yeah. Our final response is from Graham or Graham via contact. I was so excited to see you were covering Inscription. I had a lot of fun with this game. As a total Slay the Spire addict and Monster Train liker, I really enjoyed playing a roguelike deck builder with such great aesthetics and a fun, if not original, creepypasta plot. I've spent a little time with Casey's mod, and one thing that frustrates me about the flow of a typical run is how hard it is to keep chaff out of your deck. Unlike the deck builders mentioned above, where you can always choose not to draft new cards, Inscription makes it much harder to keep a lean deck. So I'll have a relatively easy first two acts by combining to create a win condition card, and then lose in the third or fourth act when I can't reliably draw it. Maybe I need to rethink how I approach the game, but I wish there were more ways to remove cards from your deck throughout a run. Gary, as the resident deck builder addict, what are your thoughts on this? Do you find it well balanced? As for the main campaign, I think you guys hit the nail on the head in that it manufactures these moments where you get to feel like a genius by discovering a great card synergy, which is the main draw, womp womp, of the whole genre. Playing a stink bug against Leshy's Moon card to make it completely harmless, or playing a deck of mages against Magnificus so that his paintbrush move removes their mox cost feels amazing. And if you don't know anything about the ARG, like I didn't before listening, then you never need to hear about Hitler's skeleton, and the whole thing holds together much better. Thanks for covering my favorite game of last year, even if you didn't like it as much. Slay the Spire episode win.
Yeah.
In Casey's, so the first question, just real quick, in Casey's mod, you can't get rid of things in your deck. The way that I've found when I try to be optimal is to try to play the game in a way that I'm not adding as much as possible. And there are some, like, you don't have as much control over it as you do in Monster Train or whatever, but you can do things like set up a deck when you get to the node that quizzes you, like, pick a card with at least 5 power, or 3 cards with at least 5 power.
Yeah.
You can choose the option that's not going to give you a new card
Yeah.
in those, and then prioritize your run towards combining cards like sacrifice altars. So in my experience, there's enough options for it. There are fewer than in other games, but your deck is also so much smaller.
Yeah.
In Inscription, like you can't just refuse a card, but you also get to the end with like an 8-card deck pretty regularly, I found.
Yeah.
So it worked out well for me for what it was, while also not being quite as deep or satisfying as Monster Train or Slay the Spire in that respect.
As far as Slay the Spire, somebody sponsors it. I'm not against it, but I need a little bit of a break from run-based games. Yeah.
We got another run-based game coming in the summer, but that and strategy are things we've been hitting real hard.
Yeah.
Lately. And I like Slay the Spire. I don't like it as much as Monster Train, which is the only thing that makes me hesitant to do it. Like I like it, and I went back to it after playing Monster Train, and I like it more, but I don't think it's as fun.
Yeah.
So it will be a thing where we'd have to be real careful in doing the episode, not just to continually damn something with comparisons.
Yeah, that would be difficult.
Yeah. And that's it for the episode.
Thanks everybody who wrote in.
Yeah, we really appreciate you. We will be doing again, just to recap, we'll be doing roundups. So if we didn't read your question or anything like that, we will get to it during those roundups. And those are moving to the $5 tier. So if you want to hear extra episodes of this once a quarter, this specific show, that is where to do it.
Yeah. So I think that's about it. We've already done the like what you can do stuff. So if you stuck around, you're a real buff. So
yeah,
put that feather in your cap.
Yeah, enjoy. Have a Gary Buck. And until next time, take care.
Take care.